Settle down, brother. This is the Quarter Report powered by enca.com. South Africa is a movie. Welcome to the watch party. Well, Senzo Mchunu, suspended police minister, is done speaking for this week. They called an adjournment. They all decided to pack up and go away for the weekend. But there are at least 4 very major stories to talk about to wrap up the week in the, what are we calling it? The MCU. The Mkhwanazi cinematic universe. The first one that we're going to tell you about is that Senzo Mchunu doubled down and said that Cyril Ramaphosa, the president himself, agreed with Senzo Mchunu's briefing to him on the disbandment of the PKTT. 2, Senzo Mchunu brought out a recording that his chief of staff, Cedric Nkabinde, took in secret while talking with General Mkhwanazi. And although the one particular part of the recording was not played at the ad hoc committee yet, Mchunu suggests that, and in fact was firm and forceful about the fact that he believed that General Mkhwanazi had threatened Senzo Mchunu in his conversation with Cedric Nkabinde. 3, we have now also learned that National Police Commissioner Fanie Masemola defended Matlala getting the 360 million rand SAPS health tender and spent longer than 100 days sitting on his hands after auditors and evaluators deemed that the deal was dodgy before doing anything about it. And 4, we need to talk about the failed raid on Brown Mogotsi's place, as he did a bunch of extraordinary interviews with the media, which was ultimately about him demanding that he could go ahead and stand before the Matlala Commission, defend himself, and tell all he said. So it's going to be a busy quarter report today. The only place to watch the full thing is on enca.com. If you're watching on YouTube, the link is in the description of the video. While you're on YouTube, give us a like and a subscribe. You can click on the link in the description, www.3beaniesnetwork.com, to go and get some awesome 3 Beanies Network merchandise. So let's start with the first and arguably the most important one. Senzo Mchunu confirmed something that Fanie Masemola said about what Senzo Mchunu said about the president when Masemola was at the Matlala Commission. You might remember that we spoke extensively about how in the first few days of the Matlala Commission, General Mkhwanazi said that Cyril Ramaphosa himself had commended the PKTT on what he saw as their excellent work. And then Fanie Masemola came along and said that he was told by Mchunu that Ramaphosa had agreed with Mchunu on the move to disband the PKTT. Now, Mchunu, speaking at the ad hoc committee today, confirmed that. He said that he had a briefing with Cyril Ramaphosa where he laid out that he was going to disband the PKTT and that Ramaphosa agreed with what he had presented Mchunu in that briefing. And then there was a bit of back and forth between him and Arendse and assorted people about what that really meant. They asked questions like, how long was this briefing? When was this briefing? Was it a one-way monologue or was it a discussion? Did Ramaphosa essentially say sharp or like send a thumbs up emoji, or did he say any more than that? When Mchunu says that Ramaphosa agreed with him, what did it really mean? And it got murky and it got confusing. And I think Mchunu tied himself in knots a little bit there, not for the first time, because yesterday there were moments where he wasn't explaining himself clearly. Like the example I remember from yesterday is when he kept saying that he knew someone but hadn't met them. And what he meant to say was, I know of this person, I'm aware of them, but it led to confusion because he was like saying he knows them but he's never met them as far as he can recall. It just caused some confusion. There was some other non-specific stuff, like when he was talking about those 2 meetings in November last year, and he was saying, we mentioned the PKTT and I spoke about it, but it wasn't really the focus, and these people were there, but these people weren't there, and they were aware of it, but they weren't there, and it was like really, really muddying and murking the waters. And what's interesting, and we've spoken extensively about presentation and about how well you can charisma your way through these kinds of sessions and how badly Shadrach Sabir did on the content, but also the style of his presentation. A lot of people have been saying, oh wow, like Mchunu has communicated gravitas and seriousness. He was speaking yesterday about being boring and authoritative and whatever, but in those moments, although he was performing a collected, serious-minded person, his words were not making sense. As I said earlier this week, the facts were not factoring in his direction. And again today, Mchunu said he couldn't recall how long the briefing was. He couldn't really recall the extent to which Ramaphosa agreed with disbanding the PKTT, or whether just agreed with the evaluation Mchunu had given in the briefing. When they were asking him how long was the briefing, and he said he couldn't really remember it by number of minutes, but it was short. That's when Arendse said, but like, if it was short, how many reasons could you get through for disbanding the PKTT? Did you present all those reasons? Because we sat yesterday through hours of Mkhwanazi explaining his reasons for disbanding the PKTT. Like, even at the most condensed version, there were a bunch of reasons that we spoke yesterday that took 30, 40 minutes, maybe an hour. Did Mkhwanazi get through all of that in this very short briefing session with the president? And then Mkhwanazi also said it wasn't a discussion, it was a briefing. So by the sounds of things, Ramaphosa didn't give any feedback. Like, he may have said, yes, I broadly agree or whatever, but he didn't ask questions or offer his own thoughts or ideas. I think that's what he was trying to say. But again, so murky that you almost can't pin it down, which may be his goal in this situation, but also looks hella sus.
I do believe that we are being gaslit slightly in this situation, mainly because what it felt like to me is he was not giving a definitive answer to anything. The question was, did Ramaphosa agree with your decision to disband the PKTT? And he said his specific words were, he agreed with the briefing.
Yes.
Which is not definitively saying he agreed with the decision.
Yeah.
So I get the sense that he's trying to make it sound like he's answered the question without answering the question. I think Malema even came out at one point and said,
yes or no.
He's not about that issue, but on another issue. And it comes back to this idea of strategy, where Mkhwanazi has been pretty committed to this strategy of talking, but not necessarily answering a lot of these direct questions.
Yeah, for sure. Lots of smoke, lots of mirrors. There was one moment where he said, are you trying to say this or are you trying to imply that? And they were like, no, we just asked you a question about this. So that's important. And again, remember when we said Ramaphosa has to come to the Madlanga Commission, he has to come and explain himself because words are being put to his name and thrown back and forth. And if he could so quickly and easily come and denounce his ex-nephew, Hangwani Mamela, it would be very easy for him to just, I don't know, send a WhatsApp. Hey, yeah, I agreed with the briefing. No, I didn't. Hey, yeah, Mkhwanazi's telling the truth. Hey, no, like, or maybe Mkhwanazi is telling the truth. Maybe, as a politician, Ramaphosa both congratulated the PKTT on their work and agreed with Mkhwanazi that it be disbanded. But the fact that he's not doing anything is immensely frustrating because this is the key question, is how high up does this go and does it involve the president? So the next big bombshell was Mkhwanazi brought a recording. Oh, and you know we love a recording. We love a screen grab. We love a message. And what's more tasty than listening to a WhatsApp that you're not supposed to have heard? You know what I mean. Especially when those private WhatsApp messages go viral on WhatsApp and then everyone's listening. So this was a situation where Mkhwanazi made it quite clear that people in his office don't use the strategy of recording people in secret. But in this situation, he's specific. He said he advised his chief of staff, Cedric Nkabinde, who most of us had never heard of before until Cedric Nkabinde gave that press conference last week after his home was raided and they were looking for him and allegedly assaulted his brother. So Mkhwanazi says that he advised or recommended to Nkabinde, who was going to meet with General Mkhwanazi, that he record the meeting in secret or unbeknownst to Mkhwanazi because he had heard that General Mkhwanazi was extremely angry with him about the letter to disband the PKTT and wanted that letter to be withdrawn. And Mkhwanazi claims that he essentially said to Nkabinde, just record this because if Mkhwanazi is so angry, he may reveal some things and we need to have a recording of what happened. And then there was a whole back and forth confusion because the recording had been submitted in the morning, but they hadn't got the recording prepped. It was a very long recording. They wanted to record, play out certain parts of this recording, the secret recording that Nkabinde took of him speaking with Mkhwanazi. And then they played out the wrong bit, and Mkhwanazi wanted a different bit. And then they had to go find a translator who could speak Zulu, and they didn't know that they needed a translator. All this nonsense. The long and the short of it is that Mkhwanazi got bleak, essentially, and said that there was a different part of the recording that they hadn't played out that he wanted to play it out, and they're now going to do that in a future session, probably on Tuesday. And Mkhwanazi said, in that part of the recording, Mkhwanazi said to Nkabinde, if Mkhwanazi is clean, he must disband the PKTT. Saying that if Senzo Mchunu has got no corruption, no skeletons, no dodgy stuff connected to him in his cupboard, then he must disband the PKTT, which Mchunu experienced as a threat to him. Basically saying, if you dare touch the PKTT, I am Mkhwanazi and my people, or the people, because Mkhwanazi mentioned something about a fight back in an actual piece of recording. that they played out, that there would be this fight back, and essentially Mchunu experienced Mkhwanazi saying that is, look, if Mchunu comes for the PKTT, people are going to come for him, and if he's got dirt, he's going to be pulled to the ground. And so that part of the recording wasn't played out, and Mchunu said that it was there, and then now in the next meeting, they're going to try and play that part out. And this is really important because Mchunu then spun it to be, and now you see a taste of the fight back from July 6th, which was Mkhwanazi's press conference, where that's pretty much, if Mkhwanazi did say that, Mkhwanazi was kind of doing what he implied that people would do, saying that we will air dirty laundry about Mchunu. And then subsequent, WhatsApp messages that have been presented by Dumisani Khumalo in the Matlala Commission that are Brown Mogotsi and Matlala and others, but contain screenshots from people like Brown Mogotsi, or at least they claim that it's messages directly with the Police Minister Senzo Mchunu. If what Mchunu is saying is right, then that kind of proves it. But that doesn't mean that Mchunu is innocent. It just means that Mkhwanazi potentially said, and we're still waiting to hear that part of the recording, that if you screw with the PKTT, there will be consequences for you based on the dirt that you have. And there could be a lot of dirt. You have to remember, Senzo Mchunu has been minister of multiple government departments. He was the premier of KZN, which is where Mkhwanazi's been working all this time. And so there could be a lot of dirt. Another question I have to ask, though, is if General Mkhwanazi's people, assuming this recording is real and gets played out, if his people had dirt of him on Mchunu, isn't the right thing to do to report it? Just like we said with Shadrach Sabir and Brown Mogotsi, good police. Even if it's a minister, you report on the dirt if you know about the dirt. Why is it a threat? But it goes back to what we were talking about, mutually assured destruction. The fact that this is a singularly bizarre moment because everybody in the police is fighting for themselves and airing dirty laundry in all directions that they've been holding for a long time to try and protect themselves through blackmail, saying, you don't rat on me and I won't rat on you. And now it's all coming out. But that is only if that recording is real. And even if that recording is real, and we assume that it was actually a veiled threat from Mkhwanazi, it doesn't mean at all that what he brought forward, if there is evidence to it, would not prove that Mchunu has got dirt. Okay, so Jason Felix reporting. So we all know about the 360 million rand health tender that Matlala got, even after he was already under investigation and suspected of serious crimes and tender fraud misdemeanors and corruption misdemeanors. He got this healthcare tender from SAPS, 360 million rand value. It eventually got cancelled on Mchunu's orders. And Mchunu says that Fanie Masemola actually defended the fact that Matlala got the 360 million rand health tender for SAPS. And as Jeff Wicks says, Masemola knew exactly who Matlala was before the tender was even awarded. Then he took 103 days to cancel after auditors told him the deal stank. No, man, do you think we are fools? Masemola defended 360 million rand health tender linked to Matlala. And it's adding to a general vibe that, because, earlier on in this scandal over the months, many people thought Masemola was like an active, incisive human with desires and moves, right? And that he was part of the Mkhwanazi camp and they were standing up against Mchunu and allegations that he was secretly back channeling to PKTT and Mchunu believed that his role as police minister was being undermined because Mkhwanazi and Masemola and others were not speaking to him and they were speaking to PKTT. And now we've just discovered that we had the sense when he was at Madlanga last or a few weeks ago, he's just a guy. He's literally that meme. Masemola is just some guy who ended up as police commissioner. He largely does nothing, broadly says yes, and he's just around. And it's bizarre because we thought that he was this major player with an agenda. It seems like he's just some guy.
I would like to do a dramatic reading from one of the country's best investigative journalists, specifically a tweet from our dear Jeffrey Wicks. This was tweeted in response to that story.
This morning.
Yes. Quote, our National Police Commissioner is, frankly, amoebic. Devoid of a spinal column, he just sits there, floating. It's little wonder our police solve 1 in 10 murders. End quote.
I think that comparison is a little harsh on jellyfish. I love jellyfish. Jellyfish are amazing. They don't deserve to be dragged
That's
into
not
this.
even a jellyfish. That's amoebic. That's an amoeba. That's like a little organism.
I just heard spineless.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
That
Good
is
day
a
for biology.
crazy thing to say, especially considering the fact that that's the person who's in charge. You know, that's the leader.
Oh, it's a one-celled creature that is among the simplest of all living organisms.
Organograms, Daniel. You got to be clear.
Organogram organisms.
Organograms,
Yeah.
yeah.
Did you see people calling brown Mogotsi brown envelope Mogotsi now? Okay, speaking of brown Mogotsi.
Yes.
So, Brown Mogotsi's place in My King got raided, but he was not there. So it was a failed raid, but then he failed to be smart and went on a ton of TV stations to talk about what had just happened. And he ultimately just said that he wanted to go to Madlanga, right? Not the ad hoc committee. He wanted to go to Madlanga to tell all about what was really going down. And then the police said that it was a failed raid. And as of this morning, there were some reports that Brown Mogotsi was going to bring himself to a police station, I think in Santa, to hand over his electronic devices. At the time of recording, we don't know whether or not that happened, but that was being reported by EWN.
Please, Daniel, correct terminology. Gadgets. You've got to say gadgets, or these guys won't understand.
He hasn't said gadgets yet.
No, that is the official term apparently
EWN
for any
reporter.
electronic devices is called gadgets.
Yeah, by somebody who was old in the 80s. Yeah, and by old, I mean like mid-30s. And I say that ironically as someone in the young 30s. You don't get to talk, Mr. I'm a not 2000. Did you see now everyone born in the 1900s is called I'm a 1K? You, me, our grandparents.
I don't self-identify as a 1K.
98. Not even close.
Yeah, but when was I alive?
Okay.